What would make a duchess beg a convicted offender for a job as his house assistant? That's not a rumor. That's not palace gossip. That's what newly released emails appear to show about the Duchess of York, a woman once at the center of the British royal spotlight. According to documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice, Ferguson allegedly wrote to an American financier in 2010 saying she desperately needed money. And her solution? She suggested he hire her to work for him as his house assistant. Her words were blunt, direct, almost pleading. "Please, Jeffrey, think about it." And here's the part that makes this even more explosive. This wasn't before his conviction. This wasn't before the scandal. This was after he had already served 13 months in jail for soliciting and procuring an underage girl. Oh, how did a former duchess end up in that position? What was really happening behind palace doors? And why do these emails feel far more personal than anyone expected? Because once you read what she wrote next, the story gets even more complicated. The email that stopped everyone in their tracks wasn't subtle. It wasn't vague. It was almost startling in its honesty. In May 2010, the Duchess of York allegedly wrote directly to an American financier with a proposal that no one saw coming. "Why don't you just get me to be your house assistant?" she wrote. Then came the line that hit hardest. She was the most capable and desperately needed the money. And she ended it with, "Please, Jeffrey, think about it." Desperately. That single word changed everything. This wasn't casual networking. This wasn't polite aristocratic small talk. It sounded urgent, personal, almost humiliating for someone who once carried the title Duchess of York, and the timing made it even more explosive. By then, Epstein had already served 13 months in a Florida jail after pleading guilty to soliciting and procuring an underage girl. His reputation wasn't just controversial, it was radioactive. Most high-profile figures had publicly distanced themselves. Yet here was Ferguson, reportedly reaching out after all of that, asking for employment inside his private world. Even more intriguing, her name was redacted in the official DOJ release. But the context of the emails, the writing style, and surrounding communications made it clear who the sender was. It didn't take long for observers to connect the dots. What kind of financial pressure pushes a royal into making that kind of request? Was this pure desperation? A strategic move? Or something deeper? A relationship far more intertwined than the public ever knew? And if that email felt bold, what she had written just months earlier was even more surprising. But the desperate email wasn't the most eyebrow-raising message in the pile. Not even close. Months before asking for a job, the Duchess of York had reportedly sent messages to an American financier that felt shockingly affectionate. In January 2010, she allegedly wrote, "You are a legend." Then it got even more personal. She thanked him for his generosity and kindness, adding, "I am at your service. Just marry me. Just marry me." Now, some might argue that was sarcasm, a joke, a dramatic flourish. But in the context of everything else, the tone feels intense, devoted, almost fawning. And that wasn't an isolated message. Back in August 2009, she reportedly thanked him after a lunch that she claimed changed her energy in just 1 week. She said she had never been more touched by a friend's kindness, especially after he complimented her in front of her daughters. She even called him the brother I have always wished for. That's not distant. That's not polite. That's deeply personal language. Reports suggest Epstein may have helped connect her with potential brand deals during a time when her finances were under serious strain. If true, that would explain the gratitude. But it also raises uncomfortable questions. How involved was he in her business life? How often were they communicating behind the scenes? Because when someone you publicly distance yourself from is privately being called a legend, people start to wonder what's really going on. And just when it seemed like this was simply about friendship and financial help, the money troubles became impossible to ignore. Behind the polished smiles and royal appearances, the reality was far less glamorous. For years, the Duchess of York had been dogged by reports of serious financial strain, mounting debts, business ventures that didn't quite land, headlines questioning how a former duchess kept finding herself in money drama. And according to past reports, at one point, she accepted nearly $20,000 from an American financier to help clear some of those debts. That payment would later explode into a public scandal. In a 2011 interview with the Evening Standard, Ferguson admitted accepting the money was a terrible, terrible error of judgment. She publicly distanced herself from Epstein and made it clear she condemned the accusations surrounding him, even stating, "I abhor pedophilia." It sounded definitive, final, like a line drawn in the sand. But here's where it gets complicated. While she was publicly expressing regret and disgust, emails suggest that behind the scenes, communication may have continued. The contrast between her public statements and private messages left many observers stunned. Was this simply embarrassment over being exposed? Or was the relationship more layered than the headlines suggested? Money has a way of blurring boundaries. Especially when someone feels cornered, reports claim her financial situation at the time was dire enough that she was scrambling for stability, looking for deals, connections, anything that could restore her footing. And when desperation mixes with loyalty, things can get messy fast. But the real twist came months after she publicly disowned him, when a private apology surfaced that changed the entire narrative. Just when it seemed like the story had reached its peak, another email surfaced that flipped the narrative completely. Years after publicly distancing herself, newly unveiled documents in 2025 revealed that the Duchess of York allegedly sent a private apology to an American financier, and the tone was nothing like her public condemnation that in the message. She reportedly called him a steadfast, generous, and supreme friend. Not a mistake, not a regret, a supreme friend. Even more startling, she appeared to reassure him that she never actually used the P word when speaking publicly about him. She wrote that she knew he felt hellaciously let down, and said she must humbly apologize to him and his heart, his heart. That's not the language of someone severing ties. That sounds like someone trying to repair them. And remember, this came after she had already told the press that accepting money from him was a terrible error of judgment. After she had publicly stated she abhorred the very accusations surrounding him. The contrast was dramatic. Almost impossible to ignore. What was this apology really about? Damage control? Guilt? Fear of losing financial backing? Or was it loyalty to someone she truly considered a friend, despite the growing storm around him? Because if this was about protecting her image, it raises one massive question. Was she trying to protect someone else, too? And that's where the royal connection becomes impossible to overlook, because this story was never just about one duchess. Hovering in the background was her ex-husband, Duke of York, a royal whose own ties to an American financier would eventually explode into a global scandal. For years, Andrew insisted he cut off contact with Epstein after the financier's 2008 conviction. That was the official line. Distance, disapproval, closure. But newly unveiled documents have suggested that communication may have continued well beyond that point, raising serious questions about what was really happening behind palace walls. Then came 2019 that Epstein was arrested on federal charges related to trafficking minors. The headlines were relentless. The scrutiny was brutal. And just 1 month later, while awaiting trial, he reportedly committed suicide in a New York jail cell. His death only fueled speculation and conspiracy theories that still swirl today. The public outrage intensified. Andrew's past association with Epstein became impossible to ignore. Interviews backfired. Public trust eroded. And eventually, the UK monarch stripped his brother of his royal titles and military honors, signaling a dramatic shift within the monarchy. Through all of this, Ferguson remained closely tied to Andrew personally, even after their divorce. They continued living at Royal Lodge. They presented a united front in family matters, which naturally led many to wonder, how much did she know? How much overlap was there between their separate communications with Epstein? Reports claim both Andrew and Ferguson had contact with Epstein after his conviction, despite public statements suggesting otherwise. And while there is no evidence placing Ferguson in any criminal wrongdoing, the optics alone were explosive, because when two former royals maintain ties to the same disgraced financier, people start connecting dots. And after the titles were stripped and the headlines faded, something else happened: silence. After the storm of headlines and royal drama, the Duchess of York disappeared from the public eye almost entirely. She kept a low profile, avoiding interviews, social events, and anything that might reignite scrutiny over her past communications with an American financier. Her representatives declined comment when asked about the emails, leaving the public to piece together the story from fragments of released documents. Online, speculation ran wild. Some called her desperate, others sympathetic, and a few questioned whether loyalty, fear, or simple misjudgment drove her actions. Fans debated endlessly. Was she simply trying to survive financially? Or was there a deeper, more complicated bond with Epstein that the public had no right to see? Her silence, combined with the contrast between private emails and public statements, leaves one undeniable fact. The picture is messy. Royal titles, wealth, and social standing could not insulate her from financial strain, personal loyalty, or the complexities of human relationships. And the lingering question that remains for everyone watching this unfold is simple yet chilling. How far would someone go when desperation, loyalty, and secrecy collide, especially in a world as scrutinized as the British royal family? Because in the end, the story doesn't just reveal a desperate plea for work. It exposes a tangled web of influence, friendship, and private choices that the public will debate for years to come. What makes this story so unforgettable isn't just the emails themselves. It's the contrast between the public and the private. Duchess of York, a woman once at the pinnacle of royal life, allegedly begged a disgraced financier for work, publicly condemning him, privately praising him, apologizing to him, calling him a steadfast, generous, and supreme friend. It's a portrait of desperation, loyalty, and human complexity wrapped into a single, shocking narrative. It reminds us that even those who seem untouchable have vulnerabilities, secrets, and choices that can surprise the world. And while the headlines fade and the royal titles remain symbolic, the questions linger. Why did these private communications happen? How much did Ferguson really know about Epstein? And how do we reconcile the polished public persona with the raw, human decisions hidden behind palace doors? One thing is certain, the story isn't finished. The documents, the emails, and the revelations are only part of a puzzle that continues to capture public fascination. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Desperation can make even the most unlikely alliances seem tempting. Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe, because when the royal family's secrets collide with scandal, there's always more to uncover.